Penn State adds one of the top available transfer portal linebackers in Amari Campbell, former North Carolina Tar Heel. Penn State's all in. Penn State fully believes it can win a national championship this season.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on to Penn State football and the transfer portal. As always, thank you so much for checking out another edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, the #1 Penn State sports podcast out there. We're going live to react to this one. My name is Zach Seyko, and I am your host of the show. Put your thoughts in the comments section. Drop a question, comment, anything about this move. We're going to bring you into the conversation as Penn State gets Amari Campbell out of the transfer portal, bolsters the linebacker room, gets Penn State closer to a national championship. Penn State's all in. There's no other way to say it. They have gone all in on this season, from bringing back Drew Aller, Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen, Zane Durant, Denai Dennis Sutton, Zach Wheatley, to adding Trevor Pena, to adding now Amari Campbell. This guy is a co-starter. He's going to rotate in with the linebackers. Now, he's going to have to get situated and adjusted, but Amari Campbell is somebody that is going to play quite a bit. Will I say that he's an immediate starter? Probably not here. Tony Rojas and Dom DeLuca are going to be your first players up at linebacker in the 4-2-5, but he will rotate in frequently. Penn State's going to operate with Dom DeLuca, Tony Rojas, Keon Wiley, and now Amari Campbell. And now Amari Campbell's in that rotation. And then you don't have to force players into action that aren't necessarily ready. Anthony Specca, I think, has a bright future for Penn State, but is he ready, first part of the season? Second, I think he's going to be a strong second half player for Penn State. He just needs time. Same thing, Kari Jackson finally getting situated after dealing with injuries at the end of his high school career, beginning of his collegiate career. Takari Nelson's dealing with an injury. And I think that's too much to trust somebody like LeVar Arrington at this point. But the loss of Tamir Robinson certainly wasn't ideal. It was something that James Franklin called it out publicly, said, hey, that was a surprise to us. We didn't think that was going to happen. And now they go and get his replacement. And you could honestly view this as potentially an upgrade. This is an upgrade. This is an upgrade at the position, because Amari Campbell has proved that he is productive. It depends on what Penn State ultimately needs. And I think they just need playmakers at linebacker, because Tamir Robinson was unproven. Did he have potential as well? Is he somebody that probably would have been on my breakout list for Penn State players this season? Absolutely. You know what you're getting in Amari Campbell, though. With Tamir Robinson, okay, is he in that same situation as Specca, where he's still going to need time because he hasn't played a whole lot of college football? Amari Campbell was a starter at North Carolina. He's played Power 4 football. He was productive. Campbell's really good at just going after the ball carrier. I mean, it tells you, with 6.5 sacks, over 10 tackles for loss. The guy just knows how to read the play. And that veteran play recognition is going to go a long way, which is why he's going to be able to make the jump from the ACC to the Big Ten. I will say this, it's not necessarily a criticism, but I do want to point out that, Penn State really does need a Mike linebacker, which Tamir Robinson, his size would have been really helpful. Campbell's a little bit of a smaller linebacker. He's listed at 5'11", 220, 225 pounds. I would say that Penn State really needs a tone setter at linebacker. Dom DeLuca hasn't played Mike linebacker. He's been that strong side, which is good, but for Penn State to run a 4-2-5, you want your, first and second down run stuffer. As of right now, that's really Dom DeLuca. Everybody else is a weak side linebacker, which is fine. You can use as many as you want. Tony Rojas, Keon Wiley, Amari Campbell are all kind of the similar linebackers as that weak side linebacker. But I think Penn State's just looking at depth here. You get a playmaker. You get a quality playmaker. James Franklin publicly said, hey, we have a need at this spot. And they went and got somebody that I didn't think they'd be able to get for a variety of reasons. One, Campbell isn't going to be an immediate starter. He's going to rotate. He's part of a rotation. But Penn State clearly was able to sell him on the idea of, hey, you're going to be in a timeshare essentially. But after Dom DeLuca moves on, so this is the nice thing about Amari Campbell is that he's got multiple years of eligibility. He's got 2 more years left. So he'll be Penn State's linebacker room with Tony Rojas, Keon Wiley, and Amari Campbell for this season and next season. Penn State's playing the short-term game and they're looking long-term here. This move does a lot of things more than just have a Band-Aid on the linebacker room for this upcoming season. But it goes back to my original point is that they are all in on this season. The Nittany Lions believe that they are a national title, not a fringe contender. They know that they can win. This is the year. This is the window. And the window, I would say, slams shut after this season. You lose your quarterback, you lose your running backs. Is Penn State still going to be a good team after this season? Absolutely. But with who they brought back and who they've been able to add through the portal, they know. You don't make moves like this if you don't think that you're a national championship contender. I like what Campbell brings, the veteran experience. He will help you in pass coverage. Again, a little bit of a smaller build at linebacker, but he's a playmaker. He's proven. And just because he is, 5'11", 225, again, I just talked about one of the Penn State prospects that just committed in Matthew Lama. And he's listed at 6'3", 235 as a high school senior. So he is your true Mike linebacker. That is ultimately what Penn State needs, but that doesn't force Campbell to shy away in run defense. It doesn't at all. He's extremely athletic. He played hurt for a portion of the season last year, but he's got incredible vision, knows how to get after the quarterback if you want to send him on blitzes. Penn State's going to entrust him with that veteran experience to adapt to Jim Knowles' defense. So for Penn State, I mean, now they are officially winners in the transfer portal. I was hesitating on that. Where does Penn State stand? Because they did add Trevor Pena, but you lose Tamir Robinson in the process. You lose a guy like JB Nelson. So it's kind of a net neutral. Yes, you upgrade the wide receiver spot, but you lose some contributors that definitely would have helped this season. And now to go get a starting slot wide receiver, now go getting a co-starter at linebacker. Penn State, I think above all else, is a winner, is the winner in the transfer portal with what they were able to with what they were able to add among the circumstances. So Penn State gets Amari Campbell, veteran linebacker, North Carolina, great in pass coverage, great blitzer, solid run defender, despite being a little undersized. Penn State makes the move. Are they still going to go after Mo Toure? Potentially. I don't see why they couldn't, but I got to imagine if they add Amari Campbell, that somebody like Mohamed Toure is going to explore. I mean, he's taken a plethora of visits, but I wouldn't rule it out. It's not impossible. I would say that it's unlikely. Hey, they got one. They got a linebacker. So that loss of Tamir Robinson does not hurt as much. And honestly, it's an upgrade. We're going to check in on the comments section, your reaction to Amari Campbell joining Penn State. We're going to talk about that more on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions after the break. And today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and even live during the game. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And they have NBA lines posted as we speak. If you look over on FanDuel right now, some of the playoff games are currently in action, but we're going to talk about Wednesday night's games. Lines are posted for that. The New York Knicks are 10.5-point underdogs to the Boston Celtics with a total set at 211. And then the Denver Nuggets, also on the road, also heavy underdogs, 11-point underdogs with a total set at 229.5 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. Worth mentioning. If you're new to FanDuel, now here's something enticing for the NBA playoffs. If you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up because you'll get $200 in bonus bets. That's right. If you head over to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. That's over at FanDuel.com. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And thank you so much for joining the live show as we check in on the comments section. This is clearly an upgrade. Yes, it is. Veteran experience, proven playmaker. So, I mean, very active in North Carolina, one of the leading tacklers in North Carolina's defense. And what really stands out is those tackles for loss, sacks. I mean, 6.5 sacks as a linebacker. So he is used to just being active in space and sent on blitzes and having specific assignments, which is really, so the speed, that closing speed, being able to track down a ball carrier, it's the play recognition. It's being able to, find the lane, assess it. That's why I like Amari Campbell a lot in this. Yeah. Big time pickup. Absolutely. Better than Robinson in 2025 and other young linebackers in 2025, plus the bonus. Yes, he does have 2 years. Trust Connor and Knowles to build him up. And there's no patience, right? He can be in the rotation immediately. The only thing is, hey, learning the playbook, and that's winter workouts and spring camp. That's ideal. You would like somebody like this to enroll a little earlier. Hey, circumstances aside, because Trevor Pena is going to deal with the same thing. So, but Campbell long-term is the solution. I would hope that, he's kind of situated by the Oregon game. That's, game 4, week 5 for Penn State, but there is going to be a bit of a learning curve. It's not instantaneous. So to say that this applies to both Trevor Pena and Amari Campbell, to say that they're both right out of the gate, they're going to be electric players. They're going to, be active in the box score. They're going to pad the stats. I would say that they, in their own right, are second half players as well, just because they're going to have to get situated, acclimated, and stuff like that. Thanks for covering. Absolutely. This is fun to talk about when Penn State makes moves like this. It just goes back to, because we haven't seen anything like this, honestly, where Penn State, they'll make a move here and there, right? But James Franklin wasn't kidding about the alignment. He wasn't kidding with Pat Kraft and President Neely Bendapudi that there is now more support than ever for Penn State football. And I'm getting ready to talk about this. We can incorporate it into the conversation right now, but the alleged rumors from Curt Cignetti. So I'm probably going to take the word of a Big Ten head coach if he's calling this out publicly. Of the $40 million roster that Ohio State allegedly, right? I'm going to say allegedly, Oregon, Texas Tech, I got to imagine Texas is in there, but I think 6 schools were identified as having that $40+ million roster. Penn State was not one of them. And that's insane in college football. And the only reason it stops at 40 million is because that's the money that they could bring in. So for Penn State to really adapt with the times, I mean, I'm not a fan of it. Because it's really turning into this pay for play, who can outbid who. But under the circumstances, Penn State's making moves. They go and get the best defensive coordinator in the country and away from Ohio State. They go and get him away from the team that's been a thorn in their side for the longest time. They go and get Trevor Pena, who's right out of the gate, Syracuse, Fran Brown, throw him under the bus and say, you're looking for money. And that it's going to be, and Penn State has never been the school that goes and kind of pushes against the grain. They don't make these kinds of moves. They don't go and get aggressive in the transfer portal. They'll get a complimentary player here and there, or they'll get somebody, hey, AJ Harris, Arnold Ebiketie. They go get guys that they identify that are really, prior relationships in recruiting. But free agency to get Pena and Campbell, this is the new version of Penn State. And they're aggressive, they're active, and above all else, they believe that they can win. Yes, this just happened. Campbell announced it. Reports, pick one. On 3, 24/7. Everybody picked it up and reported it that Amari Campbell is officially committed to Penn State. Thank the Lord. It's that's honestly, I'm not surprised by that reaction at all because, like I said, Penn State is there. They're right there. This is a national championship contending team, not a fringe team. Something needs to break in their favor. No, they are the perennial. They're one of the favorites. They are one of the favorites for for this upcoming season. You could argue LSU, Clemson. I would say, I don't Oregon. I don't know if they're a perennial. Ohio State. Ohio State's still there just because Jeremiah Smith's really good at football. But Penn State's in that conversation. Texas, I want to name Texas. I see a few projections here and there that actually have Penn State and Texas in the national title game. That would not be a bad title game. That would be a very exciting title game if I got to say so myself. But that's where Penn State is that they don't have to go on a Cinderella run. They don't need things to break in their favor for them to vault themselves into national title contention. No, they are one of the favorites. It's Penn State. I'd argue Texas. You can make a case. You could probably convince me Clemson, LSU, Ohio State. That's probably going to be the consensus top 5. When the preseason rankings roll around, late July, or early August, Penn State very well could be the number 1 team. Joel Klatt just put them at number 1. And that's not shocking. It is not shocking. It is not a hot take that Penn State should be considered conservatively one of the top 3 teams in the country to start this season. You could make a case if you want to put Ohio State, fine, sure. They won a national title. I get it. Texas and Penn State. Interchangeably, those are the top 3. Penn State has an argument to be number 1, no lower than 3. Will Penn State go after any other players in the portal? That's a good question. That is a great question. Potentially Mohamed Toure, older brother of Vabu Toure. Vabu Toure is on the roster. Up-and-coming safety. I thought he had a great blue and white game. The concern is, which is why I think they made a push for Amari Campbell, there's injury concerns. Torn ACL 2 times for Mo Toure. I like Mo Toure. I thought he was a really good fit, but Amari can't. He's a little bit larger. But Toure is really good. And we don't talk about players is really good at blitzing and getting after the quarterback. Toure played a good amount of defensive end at his time at Rutgers. We'll see where he ultimately ends up. I won't rule it out entirely that they get Toure. I won't rule it out entirely, but I do shift from, hey, this is a distinct possibility to probably unlikely because, he's looking to, play his final season, probably get a good amount of playing time. NIL, does Penn State have enough NIL resources to get not 1, but 2 starting caliber linebackers? We'll see. I'm over here saying that Penn State, hey, has shown a financial commitment to compete. Maybe that carries over, but defensive tackle is still a question mark. Why hasn't Penn State been going after defensive tackles? Well, there's actually a reason for that. And we'll discuss that to wrap up this live show and also get more feedback from your comments coming up next here on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. And today's show is also brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts who are ready to help take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them to top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, marketing, you name it. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. You'll find the right talent. If you need help with a marketing campaign, for example, Upwork can connect you with freelance experts who will deliver incredible results. You'll get fast and easy hiring. Posting a job on Upwork is free and it's simple. And within days, multiple qualified candidates will be available to choose from. You'll also get cost-effective growth. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork allows you to find affordable top-tier freelancers to scale your business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That is UPWORK, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. All right, defensive tackle. I pointed that out plenty on the show, that Penn State is missing a defensive tackle to really, really cement themselves. They have depth. They have plenty of depth at defensive tackle. That's not the issue, but I'm going to take the optimistic outlook of this. Zane Durant's your superstar. He's first team all conference, maybe even all America status. If he plays a full season, Zane Durant is a guy that can take over by himself at defensive tackles. That's what Penn State has going for it there. Alonzo Ford, I imagine, has I'll take the optimistic outlook there. Injured against Minnesota, lower body, leg, some sort of injury. I don't know, and I can't confirm. So I don't want to speculate other than the fact that it's a lower body injury. I know that much. He should be back and ready to go by the start of the season. Okay. So that's your 1-2 punch. That 1-2 punch in the entirety of the Big Ten is one of the best. So what Penn State has going for it is that they have a dynamic duo, not necessarily to the extent of a Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen, as that 1-2 punch, but a very formidable, very respectable combo of Zane Durant and Alonzo Ford. Durant, for the beginning of the season last year, was the top defensive tackle according to Pro Football Focus. And Alonzo Ford, as a rotational co-starter, I say co-starter, he rotated in. He was too deep, but he got a lot of playing time. He just didn't start officially. Durant was a top 30 player at defensive tackle as well. Those guys are only going to get better, but it's the injury risk, just in general. Now, they have plenty of depth. Xavier Gilliam is somebody that should be at the top of breakout lists. James Franklin confidently announced in the middle of spring camp that, hey, Xavier Gilliam is the third guy at defensive tackle. That is fantastic news for Penn State. After that, it's question marks. But they're not devoid of depth by any means. It's just all unproven. Is Ty Blanding going to be your fourth defensive tackle? Probably. Liam Andrews, DeAndre Cook, Owen Wafel, who they picked up out of the transfer portal from Michigan, is going to pay dividends. He's just somebody that they can at least rely on as that fifth or sixth defensive tackle. Here's the optimistic outlook for this group, is that they're all young, but they're only going to get better as time goes on. So if Zane Durant and Alonzo Ford can, withstand a 17-game season, and Penn State is able to work those backups, you just need to get them the reps. Get them the reps. I like Randy Adarica a lot. True freshman. He just needs to adapt to the speed of the game. What I've seen from him, it's just a smart, cerebral football player as a true freshman. If they can get him going and get him up to speed, Adarica can be somebody that's on the depth chart. Liam Andrews, former top-tier 4-star, I would like to see him be that fourth defensive tackle. In terms of actual production or who has the most potential long-term, Gilliam, Liam Andrews, Randy Adarica from the guys that are after Zane Durant and Alonzo Ford. And Owen Wafel is consistently improving. So those are some names to watch for. So Penn State doesn't need them to play their best football right now. They need them to play their best football later in the season, and that's where they're going to get better. That's the only way they're going to get better is if they log reps. It's still a concern to me because if Zane Durant goes down with injury and, hopefully nobody else, wooden desk, I don't want to jinx it, but you have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. They only have right now 3 reliable tackles that they've identified. Who's your fourth? Who's your fifth? Who's your sixth? We're not going to know probably until fall camp, but I think long-term, kind of like the offensive line a season ago, question mark or middle of the road. How are they going to do? And then they hit their stride late in the season when it mattered most in the postseason. Manhandled Oregon. SMU had a great front seven, and Penn State's offensive line performed well against Boise State, another team that just had a quality front seven. And their best 3 games were in that postseason against Oregon, SMU, and Boise State. So if we're going to take that approach, then Penn State's defensive tackle particularly, should be in a similar situation. That's why linebacker is so important, because if defensive tackle is your first line of defense against the run, So adding Amari Campbell as just extra support, extra help is going to be vital for this defense. So defensive tackle's still a question mark, but they're not devoid of depth. It's just all unproven. If everybody can stay healthy, then that group's okay. Zane, like I said, Zane Durant can be a superstar this season. First team all conference, maybe all America. Alonzo Ford, I think his ceiling second team all conference, maybe, for first team, that's, for Zane Durant and Alonzo Ford to be first team all Big Ten would be something to behold. So I'd say second team, he can definitely be second or third team all conference. Zane Durant, if I had to pick somebody that's kind of a subtle or a sleeper for all America, it's Zane Durant. All right, let's go back to the comments section briefly. So yeah, our defensive tackles look really good. They're looking better than initially, thought to be. I think that because Penn State, then they would have scrambled. You notice how James Franklin called out the linebacker spot and saying, hey, we need somebody to, play it at linebacker, not defensive tackle. The reason they didn't go after a player at defensive tackle in the portal because they don't think there's anybody better. You don't just add a defensive tackle to add somebody. You don't just add a linebacker to add somebody. You add somebody that can make a difference. And if you look at the defensive tackles in the portal, none of them were better. Yeah, that's saying something. I might have been critical all along of defensive tackle. I think rightfully so. I think it's justified. But long term, I think they still have, I still think there's an optimistic outlook there. You're the man, Seyko. Could not be more excited for this upcoming season. David, I appreciate that. I think Zane Durant and the two Clemson defensive tackles will be the best DTs in the country. Very well. I'm not familiar with Clemson's defense outside of Tom Allen's over there. And Tom Allen's a much better, in terms of how he's going to mesh with Dabo Swinney. I think that was a move that benefited everybody because Penn State got Jim Knowles and Dabo Swinney got, that's the thing. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder. And I saw initial reports from local outlets that said that Dabo Swinney identified Tom Allen as his top DC candidate above everybody else. If in perfect world, if he could land anybody, Tom Allen. Kind of like how James Franklin said that about Jim Knowles. Tom Allen for Dabo Swinney. Interesting. I just want to throw that out there. I wanted them to get Micah Hudson or Jonte Cook. Oh my. They also have to be a fit culturally and with what they need in the offense. Micah Hudson and Jonte Cook are quality football players and wide receivers. But Penn State got Devontae Ross. Penn State got Kyron Hudson. And then Penn State needed a slot receiver. If they wanted to make a move and upgrade at any of the wide receiver spots, it was slot receiver. That's where we're going to wrap this one up. Appreciate the support. Thank you so much for checking out this edition, live edition, and being active in the comment section. If you are new to the show, subscribe to the YouTube channel and wherever you get your podcasts. We're talking about everything over here. Penn State football, wrestling, new basketball content coming out with a commitment lately. So we're going to cover all of it. It's the home devoted to all your favorites Penn State sports teams. That's why it's called Locked On Nittany Lions.